Hey, GM everyone. Welcome to Let's Play Lil Nouns. We got an awesome show tonight, joined as always by Index Card. We're going to have a special visit from special guest, throwback to Lil Al. We're going to be joined by the Microwave. We are on an adventure. We got a lot of fun stuff planned. Let's roll the intro credits, and we'll get started right on the other side. Hey, Index Card GM, how are you?
GM, I'm doing pretty well. Kind of excited because I feel like we've made some tangible steps in the right direction this past week, which we'll get into eventually. But yeah, here's our little banner. Let's play Little Nouns. This is us. We're on this ship, kind of just going from point to point. Maybe caught in a little bit of an infinite loop out at sea. We don't really know where we're going, back and forth all around the Nounish world, but we'll get there some point.
Oops, I was on mute there. I was saying we're joined on this adventure right now by a dear friend, a dear Microwave, Mr. Al409. Al, GM.
Hey, GM. How's it going, guys?
Going well. Going well. We just want to always reiterate, it's an adventure, it's entertainment, not legal advice, not financial advice. Sponsored by Little Nouns DAO. 15.42 ETH. Yeah, a couple things I've added here. Little Nouns is a hard game. It's a very, very hard game. We were able to get our prop pass, but we always like to warn people. Just let you know it's a difficult game. This is fun. This is an adventure. Please follow along. Look at this beautiful little panda that was just now up for auction. Al, you see this one?
This was today?
Right now. It just closed.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it just ended. It's a really nice one.
Who's just settling? There's a couple that have just settled. Yeah. I've never understood that.
Yeah, well, Al, we wanted to have you on to do a segment. As you know, we moved to this kind of weekly Wednesday night time slot, and we wanted to kind of do a segment about current events with Little Nouns. And, there's these series of props that have gone up about Auto Bidder, and it's sort of hard to follow if you're not deeply involved in the ecosystem. And we figured, let's have the Microwave on. Let's have him tell us what's going on here.
Man, where do we even start? Well,
really
as you can see, there's been a lot of attempts lately to have our DAO increase our noun holding. Throughout the history of our DAO, we've been acquiring nouns through a variety of channels. And most recently, we implemented a new auto bidder made by Wiz from Federation. And yeah, there's a couple members of the DAO who have a lot of sway here, and they have been trying diligently to pass these proposals to purchase a couple more nouns. And they're getting closer and closer, but they've still failed.
I actually have a question. So from the other side of the coin, I was mostly following nouns, but could you provide maybe like 30 seconds to a minute of context behind the first acquisition by Little Nouns of a noun?
Our first one ever.
Just a little bit quick if you have.
Sure. I mean, I think our very first one was the steak noun that we bought over the counter from Will. It was very early on in the DAO, and we were honestly making way more ETH than we knew what to do with. And, obviously we wanted to have that direct governance, that direct connection with Nouns DAO. I mean, since the inception of the project, we've always been giving 1 out of every 10 auction tokens to Nouns DAO, in the same way that we give another 1 out of every 10 to the little Nounders. But at first, I think it was the first 4 or 5 we acquired over the counter. I remember there's a way to set up like direct over the counter deals directly through Zora at the smart contract level. So if you look at some of those very early Noun proposals, that's quite literally how the DAO acquired them. We would have the seller, like a private Noun owner, would go out and create a like sell order through Zora or however that works, and then our DAO would then put up a proposal to acquire that token, and you just had to call out, the Zora smart contract, the token ID of the noun, and like through proposal execution, you're able to acquire that noun. So we did that for the first, I would say 4 or 5, and then we decided, okay, now we actually have a decent holding in Nouns DAO. The goal is to continue to acquire nouns and kind of build out this builder pipeline to graduate ideas. But we wanted to put our money where our mouth is when we said that, we're here to work with nouns. We want to support Nouns DAO as a whole instead of just, individual holders who were willing to part ways with their nouns. So we then created a noun acquisition committee where I was basically bidding on nouns through a multi-sig. And obviously we've since evolved and we now use auto bidders, but yeah, that's kind of been the, I guess, the different stages of noun acquisition,
Yeah, as I said, I wasn't really directly involved in Littles, but I remember from like the Nouns perspective, and I thought it was pretty cool, to be honest, that Little Nouns was willing to or looking to acquire a noun and get involved in that manner. But now, I guess many months later, it's Little Nouns has been around for about a year. We're now 16 nouns strong, and we find ourselves kind of at like this crossroads in the DAO about either acquiring more nouns or finding other avenues for this ETH in order to maybe build community of builders and just align participants. But yeah, these are our last 3 noun acquisition props here that Penn is kind of organizing. We saw most recently the 60 ETH auto bidder refill, which probably would have covered 2 nouns, fail. And I'm not sure where we go next. I don't know if you have any thoughts or insight on where we go next as a DAO, but.
Well, I speculate the proposers will just keep trying. I did notice one of the wallets that has been voting to support was like a fresh wallet that got 25 ETH from Coinbase, and I think during this vote they had around 50 little nouns. They already, as of right now, have 96 and counting. So clearly there is someone with the intent of buying as many littles as it takes to get it done, would be my guess. So I think it's inevitable. At this point, it's just a game of how bad does somebody want it, If there's literally a fresh wallet out there with enough ETH to just sweep secondary until they can get it through, then it looks like that is the path that they're on.
Hey, shout out Zards, GM. Looking sharp with your
Zards.
pencil there. Or Al, sort of on the same vein, it looked like just a couple hours ago, Will delegated to a new voter from a large wallet. Do you know what's going on there? It's like those, 400 plus little nouns, every one of these votes, it seems like a different wallet is voting.
Yeah, so I would have to double check, but I think the original wallet was Will voting on his own behalf. This is the first time he's ever delegated ever this last week or so. So I think the second proposal he delegated to little nouner Bixbyte, who I think she had that delegation for just about a week. And nothing even kind of got said. Like one day we just kind of hopped on and, as the blocks continue to change, the voters typically change. And yeah, Bixbyte was his delegate for a few days. And as of, I think this morning, he changed his delegate to T-Mobile, which is also like a new nouner and little nouner. And yeah, I mean, he didn't really say anything publicly about it. Just made a joke about swapping his delegation, doing some round robin.
Yeah. Anything else to say, Al, about kind of the situation or kind of where we're at this point in Little Nouns or what's happening? It just seems like something that is very inside baseball and just very hard to follow unless you've been around since Prop 1 like you have.
Yeah, and so I don't know that we're currently almost at this standstill where there are a handful of members of the DAO who believe that nouns are the best value that we can acquire, and if it were up to them, I think that we would spend the entire treasury acquiring as much influence in nouns now as possible, and almost be like a large state within nouns. Have heavy influence, have our own community to govern that influence. Alternatively, some folks think that we have plenty of nouns, and the argument, I guess, on the other side is more along the lines of we have failed to properly leverage the influence that we have in a meaningful way to kind of return value to the DAO. And I guess the argument is almost like, like a couple large token holders get to influence the way that those nouns vote on chain proposals, but I think we could do a much better job, marketing that this is a builder pipeline. At the end of the day, one of the big value props of us buying all these nouns was with the intent of supporting builders in the nouns, in like the Nouniverse community. And we want Littles to kind of be that starting point for them. So, if we only acquire nouns and we don't focus on that pipeline properly, then we won't market it exists. I would argue there's lots of very promising builders in the Nouniverse, but they don't always start here. They typically don't start here in Little Nouns. And I would ask the question, why the hell not? I mean, in what community can you get direct access to these nouns, have direct ownership within that DAO? As a DAO, we have our own funding, so you can even pilot an idea here, and we can back you and support you all the way up to a nouns proposal. But I still feel like we're not getting the attention that you would think we would get, or we're not leveraging that pipeline in a way that seems like it'd be super obvious. So I think the argument is like even the people who are voting no here on nouns don't necessarily think that it would be bad to have more influence in nouns, but I think that the argument there is that we're not leveraging it properly. We don't have a system built out that is appealing to builders, and we have not figured out a mechanism to try to capture value in these proposers that we sponsor to bring value back to the DAO as a whole, and not just a handful of large voters who get to steer the direction of those nouns more than others.
Gotta say, hard agree with you on why more people don't take advantage of it. I mean, we can only speak to our experience, but as you know, because you voted for us, Little Nouns paid us 15 ETH just to have this stream to try and go on chain at Nouns. So yeah, we get it. Along those lines, Al, if you have just a little bit more time, I really want to talk about Nouns Prop 276. And I wanted to bring it up because actually let Index Card lead it off, because this was put on chain via Index Card's delegated noun.
Yeah.
And did you see that the Nounders voted for it last night?
I did not. I saw that it had a handful of votes. That made it pretty close, but that's super exciting. So did Noun 12 vote it as well? Wow.
Nounders and Noun 12. And I just thought, that's amazing. That's really amazing. But yeah, I wanted to let either of you guys talk about what this prop means, or what lessons there are there, or anything.
It's like, wow, Noun 22 voted no. That's tough. So for some context, the Little Nounish builder Arash has been building in Little Nouns for honestly months. I feel like he started off making a lot of content for us. I think we had funded him for a music video, but he was making all kinds of animations and GIFs and just fun content for Littles. And I've grown to be friends with Arash. I've tried to support him in all the work that he's done because I think he's one of those builders who gets more overlooked. Like I think of the different Nounish builders who have come around and make content, I genuinely think he is one of the like top tier talents in his field, or his, I guess, profession. And it's tough because like he's a creator, but I feel like we've had this conversation. It's like he wanted to focus on just like doing what he likes, doing what he's good at, doing good work, but he faces the problem that a lot of people face in Nouns, which is there's a lot of politicking and lobbying and trying to garner support from others that it kind of takes away time from, like, especially if you're a content creator or like a niche builder and your time is mostly spent on either developing or creating. This can be like a huge time suck for you, but obviously it's like part of the game because in order to get the funding for these things that you're creating and building, you have to get support from everybody. So I've always felt for him that I think he's super talented. I would love for him to, come up with some sort of winning prop to try to get funding from Nouns. To see Nounders co-sign it along with Noun 12 is awesome to see because it just kind of reinforces that like Arash really is a talented builder. And maybe if this one doesn't pass this time, maybe we could work with him, try to be that resource for him, and maybe we can try to get him to go back again. But I mean, even the game itself looks really cool. I think it's like a very interesting new proliferation angle. I mean, the videos of it seem really clean. Like it genuinely looks like a really good game. So who knows? I'm very interested to see if he gets that funding, like how it kind of plays out. Hopefully they get him something to work on because I genuinely think he's super talented.
Yeah. So for a little extra context, this proposal actually landed on my doorstep via Al in a DM. And so I think roughly about a week ago, Al reached out to both Mike and I, because Mike was my delegate at the time, asking if we were interested in helping sponsor this proposal. And I kind of thought about it pretty hard for a few days. And then, I felt like really compelled to, because he was delegated another Noun because you need two. And so all I had to do was just delegate mine and he was good. And I felt really compelled to because to me, Arash has been around here for a while. I remember when he first came in with his original idea and it was kind of shooed away as not being Nounish, and he stuck around, he continued building, and I just felt like he deserved the one true source of feedback, and that's by going on chain. And so I delegated to Arash in order to kind of provide him some clearer direction, closure, like real tangible feedback, just like so he's not kind of like building in a silo and thinking he has all this support, and then when it comes time to get funding he doesn't. So like I wanted him sooner rather than later to kind of get that on-chain experience, and whether it's this prop or not, I'm not too sure. I'm kind of blown away that he's gotten the support he has from some of these bigger holders, which is really cool to see. But I just thought he kind of deserved, like real tangible feedback instead of this kind of indirect stuff that happens off chain.
Yeah, I feel like that's a very good point. I feel like this is probably shared sentiment around folks who build in the Nouniverse, but it's very hard to get Nouners' attention and feedback, especially when an idea is still in the idea phase. And there's no better way to get feedback from all angles and all different Nouners than to, put the proposal up for vote. So yeah, I'm super grateful that you considered and you were willing to let him, I guess, take that opportunity to, regardless of what happens, it's going to be much more of a learning experience for him than he ever could have gotten by trying to just solicit feedback with a HackMD link or something.
I gotta say also, it's pretty conspicuous here. 4 of our Nouns here in the against category. Kind of hurts to see that. Yeah, so right now as it stands, I think there's 2 or 3 days left. It's still winnable. He's got 73 yes, 96 no. But boy, it's going to be tough with that dynamic quorum at 20% right now. He's got to get to 138 yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I will
think
have.
someone has an
You
active
go.
proposal. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I think someone has an active proposal right now to lower it back to 15, which, in my opinion, would be great.
Oh, hell yeah. We were going to talk about that later on in the show, Al. Yeah. And by the way, have you dug into Nounlius?
Nounlius.
Very interesting. It's
What is that?
a whole thing. I think it's like from Publius. It's like a noun version of Publius, which is kind of the pseudonymous authors of the Federalist Papers. And but yeah, anyway, Index Card and I feel like, well, you know how we're in Prop 116, we're going to go on chain at nouns. So we feel like if this passes Prop 282, it's going to make our task much, much easier. And so I'm planning to fully support and campaign for 282. But what do you like about it, Al? Where are you coming at this prop from?
My perspective on the lowering the dynamic quorum.
Yeah.
I think I'm for. I guess I understand like the rationale. I think the goal with raising quorum to 20% or max quorum to 20% is like they just want more hell yes props to pass and less like pretty contentious yeses to pass. But I don't know. I feel like 15 already like required like pretty strong support, even if there was some contention. But I feel like 20%, and especially if it were to increase, would just make it like damn near impossible. And only the hell yes props would come through. And I don't necessarily, I don't know. Is the argument that only when the DAO can come to a really strong consensus is when something is good? Like can't there not be value derived from proposals that might be very contentious, but if they pass, they pass. I don't know. I feel like if they pass, we should just let them be a pass. I don't love the idea of just trying to make it increasingly difficult.
I'm totally with you. And yeah, on the proposal to increase it to 20%, our little nouns made the difference. If we had voted the other way, it would not have passed. So I'm going to pay attention a lot more to Prop 282 and little nouns. Do you think we can support 282 and little nouns?
I think I voted yes already. I did. And then Anonymous Wallet that votes like Will voted against. Motion Design voted against. Seems like others than the rest kind of voted for. We're currently at slightly leaning to 4. 317 versus 296.
Ooh, this looks like a great opportunity. Index, if you can play the buzzer or the audio, I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote right now.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because I am definitely for 282. I just have to get my wallet connected up. Yeah, anything else to add, gentlemen, about 282 Index?
Well, we had Will Papper on last week, and he's got very strong opinions about nouns, and he's actually surprisingly very knowledgeable about nouns for someone who hadn't been delegated or owned a noun prior to like recent history. And I believe, if I'm interpreting him correctly, he suggested that like decision making without consensus is healthy for a DAO. And so I think that was one of my big takeaways from our conversation with him is, dynamic quorum kind of detracts from that a little bit, and it may lead to an unhealthier DAO in the long term.
Hey, so Al, quick, sorry, Index to steal your thunder there, but for those watching who might be new to little nouns, I want to vote. I want to weigh in on our nouns vote on 282. I'm using the site Snapshot. People might wonder, like, do I have to pay for this? Is this safe? Do I have to pay gas to vote here?
No, which is honestly quite nice. So Snapshot is a gasless polling solution, and we basically have it set up so that we have a bot that will create a snapshot vote for us every time a nouns DAO proposal is created. And it automatically, scrapes the link to the proposal. You can give it a read. And we have predetermined start and end times so that our community can go and cast its vote gaslessly. And whatever the winning result of this snapshot poll is, we have a group who controls a multi-sig in which Little Nouns DAO's nouns are delegated to. And their job on behalf of the DAO is to literally just cast what the poll result is. So if this prop is more for than against on May 7th at 9:07 p.m., our team, the League of Littles, will go and cast that noun vote with our actual nouns. So shout out to Brooke and Dot for covering that gas on behalf of the DAO.
Awesome. I just cast my 6 little nouns and indexes 2 delegated little nouns for Prop 282.
Hell yeah.
But this will be a good one to watch. Yeah. What else? Should we get back into Figma Index?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of jumped around our stream, but it's kind of nice because we brought Al on to talk about like one thing, and all the other topics we had in mind kind of came up. So it kind of shows how tied together everything in the DAO is, really.
Should we show Al our idea for the alt front end?
Yeah, let's get some live feedback, kind of like we did before Prop 116. I actually really enjoyed that a lot. I tend to like shy away from putting my work out there and getting feedback early on, so maybe this is a good way to get a live take.
Al, do you have another couple minutes?
Yeah. I have to leave in like probably 17, 18 minutes. I ordered food, so I have to pick it up by the hour, but it's pretty close, so I'll be good for a little while.
Cool. Yeah. So, have you heard us talk about nouns as an infinite game?
You have, or I have, yes.
Yeah. So we're just thinking, just like Low Block Party is sort of an alt front end, an alternate way to interface with little nouns. We kind of interact with nouns in the Nouniverse kind of as an infinite, we're calling it like an MMOCRPG. So we're thinking of building like an alt front end for kind of gamers of nouns.
My brain's going crazy. This could be amazing.
Could be. Will it be? We'll probably find out. But yeah, so like our Prop 116 kind of focused on like our stream and our process, but obviously we have to come up with a nouns proposal as part of 116, and so we're kind of trying to formulate that, and the idea of something a little different than 116, not just like a direct continuation, seems alluring to us. And so the idea of maybe a front end that kind of allows us to view nouns through this lens is kind of exciting to both of us. It's a challenging idea, but I kind of put up this splash landing page screen here in Figma, and I think it got both of us pretty excited about the possibilities.
Dude, this could be so cool.
What? Say more. What do you think could be cool about it?
I'm just trying to imagine what type of functionality could be built out here, but I mean, the gamification of all the things we do here, I think could be super engaging to nouners. I have heard some feedback about how like there are different aspects of participation in nouns that I feel like it's fair to even call them work. So I feel like if you were to build this out in some way that like really gamifies the different like layers of participation and engagement, and like I'm curious what other like fun little engaging things you could build out. Would this be like a metaverse type of thing? Would it be like a 2D like? Oh, I don't know. I feel like there's so many ways that you could go with this.
Yeah, we don't know. We were thinking just to start with like a simple mint, like a free mint that anyone could mint, just like as a sort of like a like a gamer card. Like if you are playing nouns as an infinite game, then you can mint this free mint, and then that would create sort of a social graph of how many people are playing. And then obviously some might be active, some might be inactive, but if you have like a social graph of wallets who kind of opt in and announce that they're playing it as an infinite game, you can kind of make graphs and data, and hopefully a community would kind of gather around that.
Yeah, my hypothesis, sort of as I was making this, was that on the traditional nouns front end and on little nouns, kind of front and center. One is the auction, but two is the treasury. And while that's kind of like a really important metric, the concept of what if the treasury was at zero, what would happen is always thrown around. And so in some ways, this kind of like active players badge or count over here, the number of active players in nouns is really, I think, the most important metric. Without the community members and players, then there kind of is nothing. Obviously, everyone loves money, and the money is kind of a big draw at first, but it's also a big detractor at first too. It's kind of this weird catch-22 where the funds attract people, but then like auctions kind of turn people away. And so my hypothesis is that the number of active players is really the important component of this whole thing.
It'd be interesting if this could integrate all the different Nounish communities as is. Like I see the appeal of creating a token, but I also could see appeal in, let's say I'm an actual nouner and I can just, since I literally hold my noun would be playable in this game. Or if I was a little nouner, or if I was in NarsDAO, or like if we could even kind of collaborate some of this with all these different sub DAOs and partnered like popular Nounish communities, and they kind of just became plug and play, I think it would make adoption of the already existing Nouniverse a lot smoother.
Shout out Mike with the funny comment there. But yeah, Al, so what we're thinking is like you, for example, you might be playing nouns just like for fun, or you might be playing it as an infinite game. And so we're thinking the token kind of like you're a different player if you self-identify as playing this game, and the game is nouns. It's like what we all play.
Right.
Like it's proposals, it's everything. Like you play just as much as I do. But it's kind of like if you acknowledge that you're playing it as an infinite game, then it kind of, I don't know, I just think that's an interesting social graph. But I do agree, we could have a little, you scroll down and it goes to little nouns, and then there's like, maybe a link to all our prop house rounds, and maybe there's a link to, low funding, although I think low funding's out of money, but just, like a link to all the different ways you can kind of play little nouns.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still in the very early stages here. This screen definitely makes it look more like interesting than we have right now, but hopefully we can kind of get there over the next month or so. I think is kind of our time frame.
And I do think actually we can even segue here, Index, is like I had you kind of calculate how long the waiting period and the voting period is, and you went up into Etherscan. Like we could represent that kind of in a more compelling way on this front end, just kind of as a public service, almost public good.
Yeah, I mean, in little, like obviously these are the nouns numbers, but in little nouns we've seen some props struggle to get attention, and I know during 116 we kind of really prioritized timing of the prop and studying these blocks and hoping to pick our kind of window that best aligns with success for us, and we did succeed, and we've seen some other props struggle too. So this is like kind of an overlooked aspect. Obviously on nouns, the windows are much larger, so I think it becomes less important. But yeah, this is like some of the rules to the game that is very important.
And on that note, Al, want to make sure we let you off so you can go grab your dinner. We really appreciate you coming on. If you got any closing thoughts, yeah, thanks. Thank you very much for coming on, Al.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm always down to come vibe with you guys. I typically, enjoy hopping on whenever I can get a hold of you guys. But yeah, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Thanks, Al. Okay, so Index, we're aiming for 60 minutes on the show, and I figured kind of the second half we could sort of work more kind of live building. Do you want to show kind of the process you did here to figure out the voting delay and the voting period? Could you kind of show that live just to show people how to do it?
Yeah, let me add my window to the stream here. And this is kind of how I would do it. I did it once in a little nouns, but kind of pulling up the nouns.wtf original front end. And the quickest way for me, just go to the DAO because we're looking at proposal, voting delay, and voting period. So this is kind of the quickest way to get to the contracts. Go to the proposal. Let's throw a global pizza party nouns that times pizza DAO. And it was proposed by Snacks at this transaction right here. And so Snacks interacted with the nouns DAO proxy. So I'd click that contract. And we could see, wow, we've got a lot of votes pending here. I'm not sure what happened with this guy, but
hold on.
Anyway,
you're in a different window now. You got to change windows.
Ah, yes. Okay. There we go. Good or no?
Perfect.
Okay. So yeah, this poor guy. We got 5 votes pending. I don't know if they ever worked themselves out, but anyway, you go to the contract tab, read it as proxy, and then there's a whole lot of parameters and functions here. But the one we were looking for is kind of down here, the voting delay and the voting period. Voting delay, so kicks off the second you submit your proposal and it's processed on chain. And this is 36,000 denoted in blocks. An Ethereum block is supposed to be 12 seconds, but in reality, it's slightly more. And so recent history, as in like the last 2 days, have it running slightly over 12.1 seconds. And these used to be different numbers, but somewhere along the history of Nouns DAO, it was proposed to unify them. And so these both come out to roughly 5 days each. And then here we go back into Figma. 36,000 blocks times 12.13 seconds is about 436,000 seconds, which comes out to 121 days and a little bit over 5 days. So 121 hours, to 5 days. And so the entire life cycle of a proposal is 10 days in Nouns DAO, which is quite different than Little Nouns, where I think it was really only a little over 5 days total. So twice the length in Nouns. That's quite a difference, yeah.
And those were a intense 5 days for us. So I can only imagine it's going to be a lot more intense. And so if we wanted to, I think we should relook at the timing periods closer, but we basically aimed for Thursday night for a vote to end on Little Nouns. So if we wanted to do that same kind of time frame, that means we'd have to put it up on chain the Tuesday before or the Monday before.
Let's see, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, Monday. Probably err on the side of earlier than we were looking to stream by like an hour or so. Because it's 10.1 days, roughly at 12.13 seconds.
That's 2.4 hours.
Yeah, so you would want to go a little bit before and probably err on the side of caution a little earlier than later.
And that's doable. That's like Monday at like 3 p.m. instead of like Sunday morning at 4 a.m.
Yeah, that's much more tolerable.
Yeah, let's see, if we were to put this info into the front end real quick, do you want to do some live Figma work? How we do that? We basically have two periods, right? We've got a voting delay and a voting period.
Oh,
so it's
man,
really just
okay.
Delay, voting. Right? I mean, can we do like some kind of infographic?
We could. I'm picturing now kind of like a calculator, like, hey, I want my proposal to end now. When do I submit? And then some like visual representation where you maybe got like, let's see. I don't know. Let's see. What is the delay? Delay color? Just straight out, I believe. Or it's pending, it's green. So they're both green, unfortunately, I guess. But
because these are kind of like the rules of the game. And what's interesting, obviously, is these can change. Like 282 might change this. But in my opinion, like explaining the rules and bringing those clear and more obvious, I think that really needs to be done, because even for us, like, we have to look it up, and without you, it would be a lot harder. Like, I'm sure I could figure it out, but it's very difficult for new people.
I'd imagine it's like not impossible, but just it's not very, very obvious. And thankfully, I guess in nouns now, it doesn't matter quite as much as it would have in the past. But yeah, these are like, you kind of have to know nouns to know these kind of numbers. For us, it's a little more important because we may do a live show to cap off our voting period. And you know what? Actually, it's probably more important.
What do you mean, May? We've already agreed to that.
Yeah. And now I'm thinking it's actually probably more important than you think because of the dynamic quorum being 20%. And with dynamic quorum 20%, as we know, a whale could potentially come in at the last minute. And their no votes now have an outweighed effect on the outcome.
Yep.
Because you could be looking good. You could whale could come in at the last minute and vote no. And so you would probably want to be around for that and have someone at the ready to maybe vote, or I don't know. It's tough dynamic here, but dynamic quorum leading to challenging dynamics. Because someone, let's just say, someone like Honk had like 30 votes and he wanted to play around with everyone a little bit. If he was active in the last 3 minutes, he could really sway some props for fun.
Yeah.
It seems like a Honk thing.
The interesting thing is, you talk about last 3 hours or last 3 minutes. I mean, my thesis is eventually it'll come down to the last block.
Oh, no, that's a little crazier, but possibly. Now I'm kind of interested in playing around with this front end concept. I don't know how to truly visualize it, but I think it could be kind of interesting.
I think it would be fun to visualize, like, going on chain as sort of like putting yourself up as a whipping boy, like in a public square naked. So, like, or something that represents, like, the torturous period that is going on chain. I mean, it's sort of like a horse race, but there's a lot of visual ways you could do it, right?
I guess we could share Can I share this screenshot from a currently on-chain prop?
Yeah.
So this is Tasha, I believe it's Tasha K. Rookswater, currently on chain in order to write a middle grade novel for nouns, kind of about nouns in a way. Let's see, which prop number? Prop 271 ends in 18 hours. Actually, quite a bit of votes on it. I'll get this on screen. But here you go. Voting has opened on my proposal. Everyone so far has voted for it, which is hugely encouraging. And I kind of wonder if she was aware of the potentially painful 5 days that were coming ahead.
Yeah, the timing of votes, extremely interesting, because they're, it's almost like a barbell effect, in that I think like a lot of really early votes can maybe sometimes swing it, but also really late votes. So I think those are kind of the voting periods to watch, are like maybe the first day and the last day. What do you think?
I don't know what data in reality says. I don't know. I would have hypothesized that late votes wouldn't matter as much, because some people may see it either it's passing or it's defeating, but maybe dynamic quorum has kind of changed things, and also the fact that there's about 10 props at once now. I don't know. That would be interesting. Maybe if a Dune wizard, if we want to become one. kind of interesting metrics. I don't know. I'm curious now. Maybe write that down somewhere, and so that you can query a Dune dashboard for us.
Yep. Hey, let's. We got just about 15 minutes left, and I want to get to looking at our HackMD. But before we do that, I wanted to give kind of a recap of we had this great interview with Will Papper. When was that? Was that last week? Yeah, last week. What'd you think? I wrote down kind of a couple of my points. Did you learn anything from Will?
Incredibly interesting. For me, like, one of the meta components of our interview was that I learned there are people out there that, like, at least public facing, don't own a noun or weren't delegated a noun, but had very intimate nouns knowledge. And now I'm starting to wonder how many other people are out there like that, who we can activate, who are like super knowledgeable, thoughtful, and well-intentioned, whether you agree or not with their intentions, like well-intentioned, and how we can get them more involved, like Will. But these are kind of like 3 takeaways I had. I put the infinite symbol next to forks, but it's not necessarily infinity forks, but that forks are kind of okay. When Rage Quit, DAO Split, or like fork idea first came in nouns, my immediate reaction was, no, that's crazy. This is like not the nouns I fell in love with. But in reality, he's kind of making me not change my perspective, because I think I was already starting to shift it a little bit, but it's actually kind of could be good for the DAO, and it may be necessary for the DAO to move forward, at least the DAO that I would prefer to be a part of. And so kind of opened my eyes a little bit more to being okay with forks. And then we kind of already talked about this with Al a little bit, but that decisions that aren't like very clearly aligned on consensus are good and healthy for a DAO. And that dynamic quorum kind of takes away that kind of component. And then my last point, every proposal now, I'm asking this question: is this something Nouns is uniquely able to perpetuate or fund or kind of get off the ground? And I don't know if I ever thought about that prior to this interview. Like, I always thought, is it nounish? But this is kind of like more specific and detailed question. other than the vague idea of nounishness.
For sure. And while we're talking about Will, a quick plug here. You go to at Lil Panda WTF on YouTube, click on over to live, and here it is with Will. We'll try to put that in the show notes here for this show. Great stream. Yeah, I learned quite a bit too. It's really kind of gotten me thinking. Sort of some of my takeaways really is, one, he talked in one sense about sort of first order thinking versus second order thinking in relation to how vocal nouns is with proliferating its kind of public goods donations. And that's really kind of opened up a whole line of thinking for me. Is like, yeah, sometimes you make a decision based on first order effects, but in fact the second order effects might be even more important. So yeah, like one example of that is I had asked him if he was going to seek delegations from other people, and he said no. He really kind of sees himself as kind of putting his voice out there and voting with reason, but not really advocating as kind of a delegate. And what I was thinking is, okay, well, maybe the first order effect is one thing, but the second order effect of you at least going out and saying you're at least trying to recruit, kind of like-minded people and sort of fighting for your thesis is you might draw more of those people to Nouns Tao in the first place. So yeah, that's been interesting for me. I also liked how, Noun 40 delegated one of his two nouns to him because he sort of shared the same vision as Will Papper, but that Will kind of had a different approach on this one kind of issue about how vocal to be. And so I talked to you about it, how it's sort of like Noun 40 is kind of trying to achieve his goals by kind of forking his own personal noun holdings and giving one of them sort of another voice. And then finally, the third thing was Will talked about planning to be sort of more of a detached voter, I think. Was that the word he used, Index, or he used something like that, right?
I'm drawing a blank on the exact wording, but yeah, essentially he just wants to keep it to this voting arm's length. Maybe was something he said. That might have been a term, but
Yeah.
back to the Noun 40 thing for a minute. I know sometime today or at a few moments today, people have brought attention to the Nounders voting block as being too large and too influential, and now I'm kind of thinking I don't know how many votes they represent. Let's say it's 50 to 60, but if they were to find 50 to 60 delegates that align with their mission and delegated out to that many wallets, how much more impactful those votes might be. I don't know if it is or not, but
yeah. Oh no, for sure. And the timing of the votes too. I mean, I think there's honestly a whole sequence of advanced timing for voting blocks that is totally unexplored. Because, if you think of nouns as a game, which it is, every single block is a new configuration with new information and more unknown information. And so if you, want to show that something is broadly unpopular, like Arash's vote, for example, had, 80 or 90 no votes and before it got a single yes vote. And I remember sort of a similar thing happened to us where if you start out in the hole, it's a lot harder to get people to vote for you. But yeah, I think there's a whole unexplored design space out there, and it's really going to be fun to watch as the space matures and we get more fun experiments. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many components to everything. It's hard to kind of wrap your head around, even if you have your head wrapped around it, to be honest. It's the fact that it does change every block, maybe an exaggeration, but it is kind of true. But at least every day, every half day, the landscape, the DAO is kind of quite different.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's look. We got about 5 minutes left here. I wanted to get back to the HackMD. I know we usually kind of avoid it. We've not typically had had a ton of success on it, but I think it is important to just kind of keep iterating. So why don't we just kind of update what we had? Remember, we started this last week. We'd called it Prop 3XX. Yeah, what do we think about that? Geez, there's been a flurry of props. If we went up right now, we'd be 285. So I think we're still probably in the 3 range. But I think there's some stuff we can add. One is we're really leaning into this infinite nouns concept, and this nouns as a game. So I think that might be more of a title. Let's see. What else?
Yeah, I mean,
like
we were pretty safe to go with a prop starting in number 3. They've come in quite aggressively, so I think we're still good on the prop 3s. But yeah, again, it's quite a different prop than Prop 116 and Little Nouns. But this whole nouns as a game thing, if we could really flesh it out, I think we have a good shot at finding success in Nouns DAO. We just kind of have to, like, I mean, you saw Al, he got pretty excited about just like a simple screen. So just imagine if it was more well built out, there was a little more to it.
We got to visualize the microwave getting really excited, maybe with some beeping noises.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think we do have some clear direction. We've got a website maybe in the works as of today. Don't want to guarantee anything, but
I think we can guarantee something. You dropped a bunch of money on a domain, didn't you? What did you get us?
I wouldn't really go there right now. There's nothing there, but we registered nouns.game.
Boom, let's go.
Couldn't pass up on, I mean, it wasn't the cheapest domain, but couldn't pass up on just the cleanest incantation of our idea, I think, in domain form. And here you are reconfiguring the ask live. But yeah, kind of a front end or just a website that kind of clearly explains what we're doing. Maybe a more interesting, exciting, gamified portal to nouns. A little less intimidating. Maybe that doesn't focus on the auction quite as much as the original. I think since launch, people have kind of been looking for something like that. I think so far I don't want to say all, but most of the alternate front ends are still very auction heavy. So
what do you think?
Unexplored space. Yeah.
Can we get a quick banner or header? Can we? How quickly can you do that in Figma if we jump back over?
Let's see. Go here. Make a copy.
We're doing this live here. I got you locked in.
All right. Should I remove this little arrow?
No, I like the arrow. Oh, I love
the arrow. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the banner itself.
But it leads you into the prop. That messes up the noggles, just so you know.
I know.
Just take them out.
Let's see. Kind of messes up the coins too, so maybe get the coins out real quick. This is where I need to learn Figma a little bit better. Yep. Here we go, nouns, infinite.
Gonna say that's looking pretty good.
Yep. So maybe something like this. To be determined, but throw a little export.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw this on here. Right there. There it is.
And to think you
Okay.
didn't really like the yellow and gold. Unbelievable.
Oh, I like the yellow and gold. I do. You know, the coins didn't make it. We'll have to update the coins next time. I think that's probably my export error. User error.
Might have been my error. Should be good now. But there we go.
I'm gonna try this again. Try to replace.
Now, if only you could actually click the arrow on chain and it would like take you into some world. But
that's to come. Look at it. We got the coins. We're looking good. We supercharged our ask. Obviously, looking good. I feel good about this week, man. I feel really good about this week, Index.
yeah, I mean we hit a little bit of a lull maybe for like a few days, but the last like day and a half kind of really kicked up a little bit to another notch, and we've kind of got our plate full for the next week. I think
When are we back next?
Wednesdays 8 p.m. Eastern, Thursday 12 a.m. UTC, 6 p.m. Wednesdays Mountain Time, all over the place. It's Let's Play Little Nouns somewhere.
Awesome. Great show. We'll be back on Friday morning with Necfus. Might be streaming tomorrow with Envon Pence. We'll have some shows in the interim, but we'll be back for our regular show next Wednesday. Index, I'll see you then. GM.
See ya. Thank you, Al, for showing up. Much appreciated. Always a great guest.
Absolutely. Shout out to the microwave. We'll see y'all next week, everyone.